right, so how's everybody doing? We feeling good? Feeling good, everybody? Yeah, awesome. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining us this evening. My name is Robert Ellis. I am a Senior Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admission at Northwestern. I'm also a 2012 graduate from the School of Education and Social Policy. I'm originally from the south suburbs of Chicago, so I grew up about an hour south of Northwestern. While I was on campus, I was involved in a lot of different things, primarily focused around cultural life on campus, but I have a lot of memories that don't have very much to do with the kind of organized events that I was a part of. One of my favorite things about Northwestern is its location and its proximity to Chicago. And so my friends and I used to go into the city all the time to try different restaurants or to go to our favorite restaurants. And so every September we would go down to, UIC to visit some of our friends. And there's a pretty good Polish place down there that was absolutely amazing. And so I would like to, welcome all of our panelists here today for the Ask Me Anything Senior Edition. And I'd like to ask you all to introduce yourselves. So if I could start with Chris, can you tell me, who you are, where you're from, what you're majoring in, and then what your favorite thing to do in Chicago is? That'd be perfect.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. I am from Houston, Texas, but I went to high school in a suburb called Missouri City, Texas. I am studying social policy in the School of Education and Social Policy. And my favorite thing to do in Chicago is to actually go explore dessert places. One summer, I did a dessert tour of Chicago where I was able to go to a different dessert place off of every line of the elevated train system.
Oh, perfect. I love ice cream myself, so I'm a little basic, but I'll get a cookie with some ice cream on top of it, and I'll absolutely devour that myself. It is a bad habit of mine. Zach, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Zach. I'm a senior studying economics and also minoring in psychology in business institutions, originally from the Boston area. On campus, one of my favorite things to do is I love just getting super involved in Northwestern Wildcats, whether that be the football program, the basketball program, the baseball program, so on and so forth. I remember freshman year, one of the first organizations that I joined was Northwestern Wildside, which helps run the student section of pretty much every single sporting event at Northwestern. So pretty much I was one of the people who just helped everyone else get hyped and helped give out free merch on game days. Definitely one of the biggest perks of Northwestern is you get a ton of free clothes for every single event that you go to. But within Chicago, I love going out to eat all the time, exploring different areas as well, like everyone else. And because we're only about 3 miles from the outskirts of Chicago and about 10 to 11 miles from the actual, loop, it's super easy and super available to just go there on the weekdays or on the weekend and have some fun as well.
What's your favorite restaurant in Chicago?
My favorite restaurant in Chicago, let me think about this one for a second. So it's not necessarily a restaurant, but it's a donut shop called the Donut Vault. It's in River North. It's just like this little window where they sell maybe 4 or 5 types of donuts, but they're just absolutely fire.
Perfect. We love sweets on this stream right now. Troy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. My name's Troy. I'm a senior from Laurel, Maryland. I study journalism in the Medill School of Journalism. And I think my 2 favorite things to do in Chicago are go to live music events or concerts, and then also try out different breakfast restaurants specifically. And I pretty much get chocolate chip pancakes wherever I go. So I don't know that trying it out the way I should be, but chocolate chip pancakes are my favorite food, and Chicago does them really well.
Amazing. We're continuing our sweets kind of love right now. So that's perfect. That's just breakfast sweets now. Sydney, you want to go ahead, introduce yourself? Is Sydney frozen? Oh, wow. That's kind of sad.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I hope everyone else can hear you too. No, you're good. You're moving now.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. So I'm Sydney. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I study mechanical engineering and the design certificate in Miss Cormick School of Engineering. Outside of that, I'm part of our Club Ultimate Frisbee team on campus. It's one of my favorite things. Great way to get outside and a great way to meet people. And then my favorite thing in Chicago is go to all the museums. My favorite time that I've been at Northwestern, which has been really, really awesome. And then I just finished an internship at the Design Museum of Chicago, which is now also one of my favorite museums.
Oh, perfect. You know, I really like the Shed Aquarium. In the main tank, there's this turtle that got hit by a boat and it split its shell open, which is very tragic. Except now when it swims, it has to swim with its butt in the air. And it is incredible to look at. It's just because it's so funny. So don't mind me though. Last but not least, Jacqueline, you want to go ahead?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Jacqueline. I'm from Los Angeles, California, where I am right now. On campus, I double major in dance in the School of Communication and political science in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences, where I also pursue a minor in environmental policy and culture. Just like Sydney, I was definitely going to highlight our Chicago museums. I'm a huge art girl, so the MCA and the Art Institute are very close to my heart. But since you already said that, I'm also going to tack on all the different climbing and bouldering gyms in the city. And what's really cool is that there's one of the gyms called First Ascent. They have like a ton of different locations all around, so you can kind of take the L wherever works best for you. But they have college nights once a month. You can come in at a discount and meet different people from all different Chicago colleges and universities.
Perfect. Working out's not my jam, so I don't have anything witty to say about that. But so thank you all for being here. This is an amazing group of people that we were able to get together for this. And so I encourage you all to ask questions. They're very honest, they're very truthful people, and they're absolutely amazing. So I do recommend, getting your questions answered while we're here today. And so I want to start off with a very simple question to you all. Reflecting back on when you first arrived at Northwestern, what is it that you wish you knew going into your freshman year? Just any advice that you would give yourself. And if I could get, Chris, Troy, and Sydney to answer this question, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I think one thing which didn't really hit me until towards the end of fall quarter was how to properly layer up when it started to get cold. Even though I lived in a colder area for the early parts of my life, coming from somewhere where winter, it only really gets like 60 to 70 degrees, I was not prepared for the first winter. I had a great coat that my mom had got me, but I didn't even think about like hats and scarves and gloves and all of that stuff. So investing in a good pair of gloves especially is key. I know the Northwestern bookstore has some really cool winter weather stuff as well.
For me, I think coming into Northwestern, like when I thought about like student groups and student organizations and just like participating on campus in general, like I expected to be in like all of the same types of organizations that I was as I was in high school. And I wish that I just like took more time, I guess, to explore like everything that Northwestern had, because there's just like so many different student groups here and so many different things that like I didn't even realize I was interested in until I actually like took the time to like join a student group or like attend somebody's performance or see a show. And then I was like, hey, I actually really want to be doing that. And so I think just like branching out more earlier from what I was doing in high school and the interests I had previously and taking more time to like try out new things that might have been interested to me.
Yeah, I was thinking something kind of along the similar lines of Troy in student groups and branching out. I think Northwestern does a really great job at giving us a lot of opportunities to explore things that we like. And for me specifically in academics, I wish I had known earlier that the professors, the advisors, anyone basically that's associated with Northwestern is like so willing to talk to you about what they do, whether it's like I've talked to people in like club sports because I had questions about that because I was involved in it, or like talking to somebody in a different engineering department because I was maybe in the research that way. Like professors and anyone associated with Northwestern is so willing to like set up a meeting and like talk about what you're interested in and what they're interested in. And that was a really awesome resource that I found kind of towards the end of my Northwestern career that I wish I had known about sooner.
Perfect. Well, I guess following that up then, what are some extracurricular activities that you all are involved in, and then how do you manage them? So, you know, Zach, Jacqueline, Troy, if you all want to kind of give me some insight into what it is you do and how you manage all of that in your time, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, sure. I can start it off. So just generally, like, obviously, like, I work with the admissions office. I'm in a fraternity. I used to be a member of Student Holdings, which runs on-campus businesses. So from freshman year to junior year, I was one of the marketing managers of a tutoring company that helps a lot of students within the Chicagoland and just Chicago general area. Anything else I've been involved in? Oh, and then of course, like Northwestern Wildside, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. And I just think in general at Northwestern, people have a lot of passion to join things. So one thing you'll immediately recognize on campus is that people want to get like super involved within a lot of things pretty quickly and find their interests and find the passions, and then kind of like narrow them down a little bit over time as they start to focus more on like individual things. And I think for me personally, being able to navigate all of these was never too difficult. I think that's because one, every club and organization that you join is well aware of the fact that, you know, you're a student as well. So they'll never like overburden you with anything. And I think also if you find what you're interested and passionate about, you'll be able to figure out how to piece it into your daily life, because at the end of the day, if you care about something, you'll make time for it and you'll be able to really just start to figure out how to navigate things around Northwestern.
No surprise over here. I am heavily involved in the dance community. I'm the co-president of a dance board called New Movement Project, which combines kind of the dance department with dance enthusiasts who may or may not take classes academically in it. I also work with Flux, which is an improvisational dance group. And then I dance on Refresh Dance Crew and Fusion Dance Company, which are two different urban hip hop teams on campus. And then outside of the dance world, I'm co-chair of A&O Productions Marketing and Media Committee. And A&O is a student entertainment group where we can bring concerts, films, and speakers like comedians to campus for free for students to see. Some of my favorite ones have been Pete Davidson and Jaden Smith more recently. I think for me, in terms of time management, it hasn't been too difficult since the things that I'm doing are the activities I would want to be doing in my free time anyway. And so these clubs have just given me a space to do it with other people, which is giving me, you know, it's like a great chance to find community, to find really good friends, to find people who are like brothers and sisters to me, whether that be older mentors or younger underclassmen coming in as I get older. And so it's easier for me to manage those activities since it's with the people I'd want to be hanging out with anyway, doing the things I would do on my own time.
Yeah, for me, my involvement has kind of changed a lot over the past 4 years. Like, I feel like I've been in different student groups every year, but throughout that time, I've had an on-campus job at a couple different places. My first year on campus, I worked at our Filmathon, and then second and third year on campus, I worked at our career advancement office. I also was a peer advisor for 2 years, and peer advisors are the leaders essentially of your group during Wildcat Welcome, which is our week-long orientation program. And I was also on the board that helps plan that program. And then I also wrote for a student publication for all 4 years I was here. And I think kind of towards the initial question, like, I don't think I realized how easy it would be compared to high school to like manage extracurriculars, because you're not taking classes all day long. You have a lot of breaks throughout the day. And it's also just stuff that you like want to be involved in. And like Jacqueline was saying, I think one of my favorite things about being at Northwestern is how passionate other students are about so many different things here. And so like, I wanted to be part of these extracurriculars because I was like, I just want to hang out with these people because they all seem so cool, and like, I want to get to know them better. So yeah.
Perfect. I do think time management is clearly kind of a skill that everyone has learned and adapted while they were at Northwestern. Who all, show of hands, is double majoring? Awesome. Well, all right, Jacqueline. So can you tell me about the advising that you've received and how that's helped you to navigate your double major?
Absolutely. So when I first applied to Northwestern, I applied as a dance major. So when I came in, I was automatically a student in the School of Communication, and I received a dance advisor. And within my first week or so, just talking with her, I already had an idea coming to Northwestern that I wanted to tack on a double major. I just wasn't quite sure what it would be yet. And so we talked through different subjects that might be most applicable to me. And then she recommended that I try them out in that first quarter to get a feel for the departments. And I realized very quickly that poli-sci was the place where my skill set best fit. So I quickly met with different advisors to declare that double major. And all the advisors are really easy and accessible. Basically, you can just Google any Northwestern major and it will connect you with faculty, with staff members, with advisors. And you can just email them or pop into their office once you're on campus. And they're all really so willing to meet with you. I mean, they want students to be interested in what they're interested in and help you succeed along the way. No one's going to try to trick you at any point. And so it was really easy. It was just a matter of filling out some paperwork, and then it was processed. Even with my minor, which I know wasn't directly the question, but definitely works in with advising. I didn't realize that that was something that I was interested in. And it's a really small program, so I didn't know that Northwestern had it until very late in the game. And I didn't declare this minor until the end of my fall quarter this senior year. And so I was even surprised then how quickly it was to meet with advisors, willing to work out a class schedule to make sure that when it comes with any final graduation requirements or things along those lines, and that I could still get the most out of every department. So whenever you double major, add a minor, certificate, anything along those lines, you'll receive a separate advisor for each major, especially if they're across different schools. So what that meant for me is instead of expecting my dance advisor to know everything about any major I might be interested in, I would meet with my dance advisor when I had questions about the dance department or professional goals I had as a dancer. And then when I had questions about more the political science side, I would meet with that specific advisor to get the most clear and concise answers to my questions.
Perfect. And the same is true for if you're pre-med as well. We have an office on campus for pre-health advising, where you can elect to have an advisor who will guide you through kind of the pre-med process along with your primary advisors for your different majors as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, you will get a ton of advice, more advice than you know what to do with it. And then you have to kind of like piece it all together like a very complicated puzzle. I like the one that I got of the arch from Northwestern, which took me 2.5 months to put together. But moving right along, you don't want to hear about me. Troy, I have a question for you about Wildcat Welcome. How do you feel Wildcat Welcome helped you get accustomed to and prepared for Northwestern?
Yeah, and so Wildcat Welcome is probably honestly my favorite part of Northwestern in general. It's about like an 8 to 9 day long program, and all new students are placed into an incoming group of about 13 or 14 other students, along with a returning student who's going to be your peer advisor. And you'll go through that week and a number of like dialogues, just like introductions to Northwestern and like different traditions. You like spend a lot of time together with that group. And I was really surprised how much I bonded with like those initial people who I met in my like other students in my incoming class, but especially with my peer advisor. I think they were a super helpful resource really throughout my entire first year here. If I had like questions registering for like winter and spring classes, I always texted them and was like, hey, what journalism classes do you think I should take? Hey, what are like easy, not too hard distros that I could take? I think they were also just like friends to me. And so like when I was going through different challenges throughout Northwestern, like they were really reliable and like always were like, hey, how are you doing? And then being a peer advisor for 2 years too, I think seeing the bonds that my students had was also really great to see. So I think that program definitely really helped me transition into Northwestern.
Perfect. So then a question from Sky Swan is, what were some challenges and benefits of the quarter system? So Chris and Zach, do you want to give us a breakdown of what the quarter system is, and then maybe some of the pros and cons that you all have experienced with the quarter system?
Yeah, so I think my favorite part of the quarter system has been being able to take so many different classes that I just wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to take due to space if I were at a semester school. So for example, I'm in the School of Education and Social Policy, which has a 42 credit requirement for graduation. And with that, that just means you have to take 42 credits across the time you're here, which is usually about 12 quarters, and that leaves about 6 extra spaces in my schedule where I could either just not take a class and graduate early or take extra classes. So something I've been doing this year and last year, I actually have been taking photography classes, both film photography, and now I'm in a more advanced photography class, which has nothing to do with my major, but I'm really interested in photography, so I've been able to take it. And the same applies to other like technical skill classes that I've taken, such as like learning Python or mapping. I think a con of the quarter system is that it does go really fast paced. So sometimes during cold or flu season, if you get sick, it can be hard to keep up with classes, but then professors are usually really understanding when it comes to that, because it's inevitable that people get sick. And at least for me, whenever I got sick, my advisor also helped me communicate with my professors so that we were able to create a plan to get back on track.
Perfect.
Yeah, I really want to echo everything that Chris just said. I really don't think you can overstate like how great it is to actually have a variety of classes. Like at Northwestern, it's incredibly rare to find someone who's studying only one thing. So being able to study, be a double major like Jacqueline, or being able to just have another minor or something, it really does add a lot of diversity to your day, and a lot of diversity just like what you're thinking about and what you're like curious about. And that's only possible because of the quarter system, because you can take more of those classes and explore more interests. But on top of that, in that pretty rare instance where you don't like a class, it's only 10 weeks instead of like 15 or 16 at semester school. So you can get out of it quickly and go on and find something new or something more interesting the next quarter. One of the downsides, like Chris said, it can sometimes go a little bit fast paced because it's 10 weeks instead of 15 weeks. But at the same time, they're not fitting a semester's amount of material into a quarter. They're filling in 10 weeks of material into 10 weeks. So you're not learning more than you need to. You're learning at the same pace. But I personally think the biggest downside of the quarter system is the fact that you just have to take 3 finals every year instead of 2. No matter what, finals are never that much fun. They can be a little difficult. They can be a little stressful, like at any other school. So having to do that an extra time every year can be a little bit frustrating. But on the other side of the coin, you're learning and studying for less material for that final because it's only 10 weeks of material instead of 15. So the actual amount of time you have to invest into that finals period is reduced each time.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So then we have a question from Lily O'Sullivan, which is, do students have close relationships with faculty? And Sydney, do you want to tackle this one? And Jacqueline, I see you're very excited. So if you want to tag in too afterwards.
Yeah, so I kind of talked about this a little before, but I found like one of the things I said I wish I'd known sooner was how willing people are to talk to you, specifically like faculty. When I came into Northwestern, I didn't really know what type of major I wanted to do. I was in the School of Engineering, but I was really undecided. And I was able to talk to, you get a first year advisor when you're in McCormick, and you're able to set up meetings. They reach out to you to set up an initial meeting, and McCormick actually makes sure that you have a meeting with your advisor every single quarter. So like to approve your study plan, make sure you're doing okay. And so after my first year, I had started talking to some professors because I was like learning about different majors and maybe what I wanted to do. And one specific professor in the School of Engineering who heads the manufacturing and design program became one of my like mentors, I would say friend at this point. He became my advisor, and it like really guided me through college. And like I'll like knock on his door, and like even if he's busy, he'll be like, step in for like a second and like chat with me. He was able to introduce me to other faculty that I really look up to and who have helped me like resume, stop by when they see me and are like, how are you doing? Like, what have you been up to? And check in. So I think that's really a really cool thing about Northwestern is like, it's small enough where they like all remember me, and then they're not only do they remember me, but they're able to like build a connection with me. And they remember your face and they attempt to make conversation. Like they're really great, and that leads to like being able to develop these really awesome like mentorship or even just friendly relationships with your professors.
Yeah, I think the professors at Northwestern are just so special. I always talk about this whenever people ask me about like transitioning from high school to college, because I came from a really small all-girls school where, you know, the professors knew everyone by name, they knew your face. It was impossible to not know you because it was such a small school. And so I was really nervous going to college about that. I didn't want to just be a random face in a giant lecture hall. And I have just found the professors to be the most friendly, just kind of the people that you can meet and have as your professors and mentors. Even to the point where I'm currently deciding between two different, you know, postgraduate plans. And when it came to getting letters of rec, getting references, it wasn't hard for me. The question wasn't, you know, who's going to remember me, who's going to know if I was in class. It was just a matter of, you know, which professors do I want to speak to this and this? And it was a different question of it's harder to pick which professors rather than not having enough to choose from. Even to the point where, like Sydney said, you can pop in, you can have chats. I have tea with one of my professors as often as I can. And since we're virtual now, you know, we just had a little tea time over Zoom the other day to talk through these different options. So I think the professors are definitely one of the best and sometimes the most underused resources on campus.
Perfect. You know, my first year at Northwestern, faculty member introduced me to a barber, and it doesn't look like I go to a barbershop anymore because, you know, they're closed, but that was very helpful moving up to Evanston. So I will say faculty can help you with a little bit more than just academics, especially if you ask them about it. And so a question from Natalie De Leon. How and when does one register for classes, and are there advisors for choosing classes that would coincide with being on a pre-med track? So Zach, do you want to tackle this question?
Sure. I'll do the first part, then the second part. So you typically choose so freshman year, you actually don't sign up for classes until Wildcat Welcome. So you'll be with your peer advisor when you're finding out what classes to join and how to join them. So you'll immediately have a resource right next to you alongside your first year freshman year advisor to help you actually navigate that. But then after your freshman fall, you typically will choose classes, I believe, week 6 of the quarter before. So let's say if I'm registering for winter classes, I would register for those in about early November for that. And then you typically then can stay in a class and change your classes up until the end of the first week. And then you can actually drop a class until about week 5 or week 6 of that quarter as well. So there's a lot of flexibility around what classes you're joining and shopping around a little bit to actually find out what you're interested in and maybe switch it around a little bit. What was the second part of the question?
Folks helping with choosing classes that coincide with pre-med track.
Yeah, so you, there are so many like times I've heard of like my friends just reaching out to their advisors, especially a lot of times my pre-med friends will reach out to their pre-med advisors to figure out what classes to join. And they're all super responsive over email, and you can also easily just schedule appointments with them to decide what you want to take.
Perfect. So are any folks comfortable sharing their post-graduation plans potentially? And so then the question is, how prepared do you feel for your life after college? And then what programs or individuals made you feel ready? And so Zach, you said you'd like to speak to it. So I'll give you the floor again.
Sure, I'll go again. So I'm going into the consulting field after I graduate. So I'll be starting in, I believe, early October. I actually chose Northwestern because I wanted a school where I could really prepare for the business world and gain a lot of skills and like tools that I needed. But I didn't want to go to a business school specifically in the undergraduate level. And one thing that I learned really quickly while I was an undergraduate student is so many companies are not actually looking for business school students. They're looking for students who are majoring in liberal arts fields because they want students who can think creatively and think outside the box and know how to problem solve. So that's been really helpful. And then alongside that, There are so many companies that will constantly be recruiting on campus, especially like in the business field. If you want to go into consulting, if you want to go into banking, marketing, PR, communications, etc. There are constantly companies coming on campus, doing interviews or conducting interviews, doing info sessions, and just trying to maintain a really strong pipeline because companies really do love Northwestern students.
Perfect. So for Sydney, how flexible is the engineering curriculum, and do you feel that there's enough space for variety?
Yeah, so like I said, when I came to Northwestern, I wasn't sure what kind of engineering I wanted to do. Something that's really cool that Northwestern does to sort of expose you to different kinds of engineering is the engineering analysis sequence. So you go through 4 engineering analysis classes, and they each kind of touch on different types of engineering, and sort of like while you're taking your like chemistry and your math and stuff that you need as prerequisites to other classes, you also get to sort of experience these classes at the same time to like get a feel for what you want to do. So in terms of like how flexible it is, you have your, a lot of everyone's been saying kind of like distros. It's something called a theme. You can take any 7 social science or humanities classes, and that's part of your requirements for your major. So that's like a way that a lot of people like tack on a minor. My roommate right now, she's doing a psych minor, and like all of her theme classes count towards it. So that's something she's doing outside of engineering that she was really interested in and got to delve into that. You also have 5 unrestricted electives. So that's 5 classes that you do have to take, but it can be anything from painting to a political science to an environmental studies class. So you can really use those 5 credits for anything. And then you also have within your major room built in of like flexibility. For me as mechanical engineering, you get to some of those higher level classes and you get to pick whether you want to do fluids or thermo, what kind of specification you want to do. And then that's like the same with technical electives. Like I did a design focus for my technical elective, but you could do like material science or anything else that's interested within your field. So you really have this like wide breadth to explore kind of whatever you want. I will say that I didn't really tack on much else to my major, but I did graduate a quarter early. So now I'm just out in the real world. But yeah, like I'm still like auditing classes, which is a really good opportunity for me, which is where you can like participate in the class if you email professor and ask, and they'll just be like, sure, or maybe no. But they let you like experience the class without actually getting a grade. So that's another way that I've been able to explore classes. But I found that I was able to take like anything I was interested in. I also took like photography classes like Chris did, some painting. I took some environmental science classes that I was interested in, and my schedule fit all of it. And I was still able to graduate a little bit early.
Perfect. What was your thing?
Huh?
What was your thing?
My theme?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my theme was arts. So with your theme, your 7 classes that you take, you write a little statement and you have to link 3 or more of those classes together. So my 3 classes were this art history course I took it inside of our block museum, which is very far on South Campus. I did not know where it was, but as somebody who's interested in art, they have these exhibits that come sometimes before like they bring them to Chicago or send them to a bigger museum. So that's like really cool that you have that museum on campus that you can go to. But my art history class was taught in that museum. And then I took intro to black and white photography, where we developed film, and then intro to painting, where we did oil painting. So that was my little theme. I really liked it.
Perfect. So Chris, how competitive would you say students are with one another?
I would say that it's not as competitive as I've heard some of my friends at other schools. Like a lot of students, they really work to help others and like collaborate, because there are a lot of like different group learning experiences, especially in my school. Students really do look out for each other. It's never like, oh no, I won't help you with this because you'll do better. It's more of, oh, this is what I have. What do you have? How can we work together? And I think that's a really cool feature.
Perfect. The most competitive we got when I was in school was snowball fights. And I love to to throw snow. It's like one of my absolute favorite things in the world. And so I once picked up a snowball, tossed it at a young woman's back. She turned around, it hit her in the face, and that's when I learned that it was a ice ball. And I've never felt so bad in my life. But you don't have to worry about her because now we're married. So that's a great story. Competition does sometimes get you something. Zach, you've touched on this a little bit, but are there any kind of additional business opportunities for undergraduates since there's no business major? Like, what are some of the things that you did that kind of got you to consulting?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll talk about classwork specifically, then I'll go into like clubs and like other activities. So classwork specifically, being an econ major, it does give you a lot of the skills that you actually do need to go into consulting or investment banking or some other type of financial services industry out there. But if you want to gain a much more technical experience as well, we also have a minor in business institutions, which is what I'm taking right now, which is my minor, I mean. So you take classes in like accounting, marketing, corporate leadership, and finance. But then we also have 2 programs in Kellogg, or 2 certificates. You can get a certificate in financial economics or a certificate in managerial analytics. These are very technical classes where you truly will gain a lot of the skills that you can then use out in the workforce and out in the real world. Then there's a scatter of other programs as well. You can get a certificate in marketing or certificate in integrated marketing. You can get, but then specifically within clubs and organizations that I'm in, like I said earlier, I was in student holdings, which runs on-campus businesses, which are good skills to gain. But I'm also in a business fraternity. And this is an organization where I was able to learn how to network really effectively. I was able to learn how to build a really strong resume, how to, just cold call people or cold email people and actually break into these different industries and learn a lot of information. But then beyond that, of course, there's just so many advisors out there who will meet one-on-one with you to actually tell you and teach you how to just do cool things and break into these industries. And, just everyone's collaborative and wants to actually help out everyone at the school.
Cool. So, Chris, did you start off in SESP?
No, I did not.
How easy was it to switch?
Oh, it was actually really simple. I kind of knew I wanted to be in SESP since after getting admitted. I just didn't know what SESP was before. But I put it on the back burner when I first started classes. And then once I realized that's where I wanted to be, it was really easy. I just looked up School of Education, Social Policy transfer. And I was able to find that they had this inter-school transfer system where you meet with an advisor within the concentration that you're interested in being in. And you go to an info session, which is also the same info session that you would go to if you were a prospective student. And then from there, you just fill out this application. And I put it in quotes because you do answer questions, but it's really just getting you to think about why you really want to join. And after that, it's pretty simple. You just have to do it before a certain deadline. I want to say it's the 5th week of the quarter, but don't quote me on that. And yes, after that, I got an email saying that my transfer had been approved and I was in the school. And I was able to start taking classes throughout that process, but also then I got the opportunity to pre-register for classes within the school.
Perfect. So Troy and Jacqueline, how big is Greek life on campus? How big of a part of it is, just social life, or, what impact does it have, would you say?
Yeah. And so I think my first year, I remember going through Wildcat Welcome and hearing a lot of other students talk about it, and hearing my friends at other schools talk about it as if it was going to be kind of an all-encompassing part of my life here at Northwestern, or just going to a school in general. And I think one thing that I really liked about Northwestern was that if you wanted to be involved in Greek life, you definitely could, and it could be a big part of your experience here. But if you didn't want to be involved, it wasn't it had to be everything still, even if you weren't participating. And so I think one thing I really enjoyed doing was even when other friends of mine were rushing in the fall or in the winter and like joining fraternities or sororities and like talking about that, like I still would have time to like hang out with them and like go to like shows downtown or like different things on campus. But also like there was a lot of students too who like weren't participating, so like I still could hang out with them also. And so I think it's really just like what you want it to be and what you make of it, has been my experience.
Absolutely. I agree that Greek life can be as much or as little of your experience as you want it to be. I don't think it would have another school, but I really liked how low key the Greek life system was at Northwestern compared to other schools that I had seen or heard about through my friends' experience at the time. Something that's really cool about Northwestern's Greek life is that we rush in the winter quarter. So you have all of fall to make friends regardless of what you're involved with or if you rush or not, and to get a feel for not only campus, but just like yourself on campus before deciding if you want to rush and what that experience might bring to you. It's also a low commitment if you start to rush. I know a lot of people go through the process and then decide that it's ultimately not for them, but they gave it a try, at least in that first process. Statistically, around 30% of students on campus are involved in Greek life, whether fraternity or sorority. So, you definitely have people who, like we all talked about, people that you want. One of my favorite parts about our experience is that you're not defined by it. I think at other schools, okay, oh, my name's Jacqueline and I'm in this sorority, and that's kind of that with that. Whereas with Northwestern, you're like, oh, I major in this, I'm involved with this, I live here, I'm in this sorority, and it's just kind of one of many things that you do rather than your only source of socialization. For me, I joined Greek life and then deactivated last year, and still been able to maintain those relationships and have enjoyed the experience that I had.
Cool. So the five of you all are, your primary residences are in different schools. And so 45 seconds. Tell me about the workload. If we can start with Chris.
It's a pretty manageable workload. I would say it's still very rigorous. So one way that I've been able to sort of manage everything is I keep all of my due dates on a calendar, while also keeping all of my group meetings because we have a lot of group work. Most people think group work is easier, but it's really not. So just like finding ways to really like fit in everything with everyone's schedules. But with all that being said, it's still like I'm not drowning in schoolwork.
Perfect. That was 30 seconds. Let's try that, Zach. Can you beat 30 seconds?
Meaning shorter or longer?
I mean, we'll see.
All right. Yeah, so I'm in Weinberg. I've always felt like it's incredibly manageable. And that's because I just think that professors here actually are like very kind, sympathetic people who will go out of the way to, one, help you if you're ever struggling, but two, if you ever have too much, you can always ask them for an extension, and they'll be so available to help you out and give you some extra time. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you're really passionate about what you do, you're able to focus on it and care about it and study hard, and time will pass and you'll be able to just get everything together in a perfect sense.
Cool, that was 40 seconds. All right, Troy, what you got for me?
Yeah, so Medill's workload is actually really nice during your first year on campus because you're only going to take one journalism class each quarter. And so I think it helps you like transition into the school and get like a taste of journalism if you haven't, like I came into Medill not having ever done journalism in high school. And so like I got on the same page as everyone else, but I also wasn't like only taking Medill classes. And then overall about like only a third of your classes are going to be like Medill classes in general. And so you're going to have a lot of time to explore like your interest in journalism, but it's also just like taking other classes and things that you're interested in as well. So it's definitely easy to balance.
34 seconds. What you got for me, Jacqueline?
School of Communication is pretty different from the rest of the schools in that our workload is majority in class. For dance, for theater, you're not doing a ton of assignments outside of class, but you're giving it your all physically, mentally, academically in that class space. So it's really easy to manage, mostly just a paper here or two there at the end.
Ooh, 16 seconds. All right, Sydney.
McCormick will not be that. Yeah, so I would say McCormick is on the heavier end of the workload. There's so many memes about it, but I wouldn't say it's unmanageable as one of the not top of my classes always. I think that there's a lot of people who have different strengths in different things. There'll be people who get A's in a lot of their classes, and there'll be people who struggle in different things. Like one of my favorite classes is unanimously hated by a lot of McCormick students, but it was a subject that I really thrived in, and I think there's a lot of things that you have to learn to be able to get to interesting stuff. But I also think that if you time manage and do all those things, I've been able to maintain a really healthy social life and club practices 3 times a week, and I've managed pretty well.
It's a little irony in the engineer went over by 2 seconds, but those are perfect. Great answers. I do think you'll find that the workload varies based on really your skill set as well. So that was a great question. So let me ask this of you all. What's your favorite thing about Northwestern? And so let's start with Sydney, work our way backwards here. What's your favorite thing about Northwestern?
My favorite thing about Northwestern is definitely the people. I'll take the easy answer. Everyone that I've met has been really, really interesting. And I think when people ask me what do all Northwestern people have in common, I like to tell them that there's the people that I meet all have something that they're passionate about. And so all the people here, a lot of them visitor center and working in admissions, and I didn't know them before. They're all of completely different backgrounds than mine, but something that makes each of them super, super cool to talk to is we all have different interests, and we'll talk about them and we'll explain them to you. And that's my favorite part is learning about people and making really awesome, passionate friends.
Cool. Jacqueline?
Hands down, same. My favorite part about Northwestern is how every student is a nerd. No matter how cool you think someone is in the stereotypical sense, you just find that one very niche topic that just gets them going, and you can't get them to shut up. And it's the most exciting thing ever, both in the fact of finding people who are equally passionate as you are, and whether that be, I have no idea what my friends are talking about sometimes, but I'm gonna let them talk about their thesis anyway, because I want to support them just as they support me. And then finding those people where, your really niche interests perfectly aligned, and you can just really go full out and ham on that one topic, whether it be literally anything. There's always someone, a friend, a professor, an advisor. That's definitely my favorite part about Northwestern.
Perfect. Troy?
Yeah, my favorite thing is also the people, but my second favorite thing is how much there is to do here. I think there's just so many opportunities. Coming here, I would have never thought I would have taken a screenwriting class or a design class, an engineering design class, things like that. And then I think out of the classroom, there's just so many extracurriculars or opportunities to get involved and do a lot of really cool things that I never even thought of really before I came to Northwestern. And then there was just all here. And I think over the past 4 years, it's been really cool to engage with different student groups or different clubs, or talk to my friends and go to a show with them and just do all these things that I don't think I would have had the opportunity to do elsewhere.
Perfect. Zach?
Probably our location. We truly do get the best of both worlds between a college town, but then also the 3rd biggest city in the country. It just offers a really good diversity of things to do. So Evanston, as I'm sure you guys may have heard, is the dining capital of the North Shore area. So there's over 80 different restaurants, cafes, coffee shops. Unfortunately, we can't go to right now, but soon we'll be able to go to and enjoy again. So that's an easy way to get off campus and eat some good food. But then, of course, Chicago, whether you want to go to a Cubs game, or you want to go to the Art Institute, or you just want to go explore a new part of the city, having both Chicago and Evanston both within a few minutes of us really just creates a more fun lifestyle to have.
Perfect. And then Chris?
I think my favorite has to be the opportunities that I've been given since being here. I don't know if at any other school I would have been able to study abroad 2 times while also like working on learning 2 languages and still take classes that are related to my major and meet friends from all over that I really do consider to be lifelong friends, while also just like having a good time, having access to the city of Chicago. Our football team wasn't that great this year, but I still love going to the football games. I love going to the basketball games. And I don't think any other school has as many great opportunities as Northwestern.
Perfect. So my favorite thing is also my least favorite thing now, and that has impacted my life beyond Northwestern, is that every day for lunch I would get a grilled chicken sandwich, and I absolutely loved them. They were absolutely delicious. And then once I graduated from Northwestern, I have not had a grilled chicken sandwich since. So in 8 years, no grilled chicken sandwich because I did them too much. So don't be me. Diversity in food, very important, very, very important. What would you all say your relationship was like with your freshman year roommates? Can I get Chris, Troy, and Sydney potentially?
I definitely had an interesting experience with my roommate. We were both random roommates because we hadn't found anyone else. She was very nice. We were both from Texas, so that was something that we bonded over, but we just lived very differently. We didn't really set guidelines in the beginning for how we wanted to act in the room. So that just caused a lot of challenges, but we bonded over a lot of things just because we had gone through so much, like bonding over the election that had happened during our fall quarter and just like every other thing that had happened. So overall, like a decent experience. I just wish we would have settled some of our disagreements a little earlier on.
Yeah, so I also came in with a random roommate, which is actually like more common than I would have thought, like coming to Northwestern, because it seemed like everyone was pairing up, but only about 7% of students come in with a roommate chosen before like coming to campus, which is actually really nice. Me and my roommate, like I thought that we had to be like best friends because that's what I've always like heard about, basically. Like that's like what you like, the expectation that I don't know where it comes from, but like we weren't like super close, but we like got along, and like whenever he was like really nice to talk to, and we did like continue to talk through all 4 years, but not like in like a super intense way. But we were like friends, but not super close. But I think it was like a good relationship for us to have, and we got along. We had like some challenges, but I think it was helpful to like learn how to like communicate through them because they like kind of come up whenever you have a roommate. So yeah, it was good overall.
Yeah, so I actually came in having chosen my roommate. She was one of my friends from camp's friend, and she was like, yeah, like I think you guys would get along. We like met one time before briefly when I was visiting that friend, and it turns out we were like pretty different in terms of like how we lived, but we were both like very willing to like talk about it. Like neither of us was like a passive aggressive person, so like we would just like we'd be like, hey, like, is this okay? And the other one would like really be fine with that, which made like us have a really good roommate dynamic. Kind of like Troy, like we ended up being best friends, but one of the really awesome things about living in residence colleges are that my neighbor became my best friend, and we have lived together the next 3 years. So we both found people, me and my roommate both found people on our floor that we really got along with, and were able to have like a really great living situation.
Cool. Me and my roommate clashed all year, and now we talk on the phone once a week. So, you know, that's how life works. So let's go with the lightning round here. Let's see. Chris, is Northwestern big on school spirit?
Yes. The amount of purple that's seen at all the sporting events is wild. I went to a school a high school that was also a purple cat, and that school didn't even compare to how much purple I see here.
Perfect. I would have asked Zach, but that would have been cheating because of the wild side. Troy, what would you say the alumni network is like, and is it really big and helpful?
Yeah, it's actually really great. I think in Medill specifically, at least in my own experience, like Medill alumni are so willing to help out like undergraduates, no matter what, like the things that they like will reach out to you for, or you'll reach out to them and they'll be like, you'll just ask them like one question, they'll be like, hey, let's get coffee. And that kind of extends to all schools, which is really great.
Perfect. Jacqueline, how supportive is Northwestern academically?
Maybe a little bit too supportive. Anytime you come to them with an idea, whether it's like a loophole or something new, they're like, yes, let's make that happen. And that's how you end up with multiple majors and minors.
Perfect. And so to close this out, I just want to ask you all, why Northwestern? What brought you to Northwestern? We talked about your favorite things that you've experienced at Northwestern, but when you were deciding what school to go to, why did you pick to go to Northwestern? And so let's start with Sydney.
Yeah, so in my Why Northwestern essay, I wrote kind of about this creativity and the classes that were going to be offered that would allow me to express that creativity. And I found, even though engineering is sometimes thought of to be strict, like the design thinking communication class that we do freshman year, and then like the shop and all of the maker spaces that we have that I've spent a majority of my time at Northwestern in, were what drew me here. And I'm so glad that they did.
Perfect. Jacqueline?
Actually, for the answer that I just told you about, Northwestern was the very few places that would let me double major in a performing arts and a more traditional academic sense and have it be equally rigorous in both. And it not only was just like allowed, but it was really encouraged. And so I knew that it was the right fit for me because it was the right kind of people.
Perfect. Troy?
Yeah, so in high school, I like had a ton of different interests and honestly wasn't really sure what I wanted to end up doing in the future. And so I was interested in journalism, but I was also interested in like social policy, which was interested in English, a lot of different majors. And I felt like coming to Northwestern, I would have the flexibility, like regardless of what I ended up choosing, to like explore all of those topics and like make a decision after I like felt comfortable like exploring everything. And that definitely turned out to be the case.
Perfect. Zach?
Yeah, so a little bit more about me. I went to like this really competitive small high school where I constantly felt like everyone was competing against one another, and the only focus every day was getting into the best college possible, like getting the best GPA in the world and like just being better than everyone else. It was like a very dog eat dog world. So when I was looking at colleges, I wanted to find a significantly more collaborative place, but not only more collaborative, but also like more fun, where people could live in the moment. People could study really hard and prepare for the future, but at the same time, like go to football games, join clubs, do things that just make them happy. And I've completely gotten that experience in Northwestern. Everyone here is just actually kind. It's not a competitive environment. People actually want to build up one another, which is so helpful. And like a key theme throughout this entire thing, it's really easy to find your passions outside the classroom and fully explore them.
And Chris?
I think mine has to do with one of Northwestern's favorite mottos, which is "and is in our DNA." We joke about it all the time, but I just didn't see any other school that I was applying for that would allow me to challenge myself by taking classes that were way out of my comfort zone within the flexibility of the quarter system, while also just like doing so many random activities and learning new skills and playing sports and meeting friends and doing all of that.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining us today. It's been wonderful. I've had a great time kind of hanging out with y'all, learning more about the students here, answering you all's questions. If you all do have any more questions that you want us to answer, feel free to reach out to the admissions office. We're here to help you. We'll get you into contact with some of these beautiful people. And so with all that said, stay safe, wash your hands, and go Cats. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Why not, you know? And tune in for more beautiful, wonderful content. Robert Ellis, this is the Robert Ellis Show, and friends. Thank you all for coming. And there's a live stream on Instagram tomorrow at Northwestern Admissions. So be there. I'll be there. I won't be speaking, but I'll be there. So take care.